Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Baron and this is your Brain on Books, and today we get to talk about the modern classic of historical fiction that is The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Now, wow, I cannot think of a book that's been more hype for me than The Pillars of the Earth. Everybody loves this book. High ratings, nothing but good things to say, which made it a little bit intimidating to pick up because, I didn't want to be disappointed, but also this book is huge. It's like 10 million pages long. So aside from just breaking down what this book consists of, I really want to share my experience and see if the hype was warranted. Did I love this book? And we're going to get into it. But real quick, let's just touch on what the story consists of. And only thing I knew going into it is that it's surrounded with the construction of a cathedral, and that is absolutely the case. This is set in Europe, primarily in England, in the foundation of Kingsbridge in the 12th century, and the cathedral itself really provides a backdrop to everything that's going on in England at the time. Shifts in power, really this balance between the monarchy and the church, and there's just tons of intrigue and drama and all types of lovely things that we enjoy reading in books. So you're really following two primary protagonists. The first one is an architect. Now, he has this vision of building a grand cathedral kind of as his life's achievement, if you will, and he makes a promise to his wife that he will succeed in doing so. And our other main protagonist is a monk who has just taken over as the prior of the Kingsbridge Priory. Now, due to some really heartbreaking circumstances, these two cross paths and they decide to work together to construct this grand cathedral. Now, one thing I was not aware of is how ambitious an undertaking that is in the 12th century. We're familiar with modern construction techniques, but their conservative estimate that they're given to construct this thing is 15 years, and that's all contingent upon having the right labor, access to resources, funding, support from the church, support from the monarchy, and they set out upon this task, but of course this is a intense epic drama and they're going to run into obstacles. And it's really, this book is about juggling all of those objections over a period of time, which turns into a multi-generational story that was just compelling and felt high stakes, even though you're just reading about the construction of a single building. Like I said before, it's really a backdrop to everything else that's going on. And as you see progress or lack of progress in this construction, it really reflects everything else that's happening within that period of English history. So that's basically what the book is about, and it has so much other stuff to it that made it absolutely compelling. There's a lot of romance in here. There's action. There's battle scenes. It's chock full of all sorts of compelling material. So that being said, I want to touch on what did this book do well? What maybe could have been better overall? And then I want to share my final thoughts. Is it worth the hype? So first off, what did it do well? Characters. The character work in this book is fantastic. These are characters you hate, you root for, they feel three-dimensional. You want to see what happens to them and you cry for them, you cheer for them. Phenomenal job. I haven't read any other Ken Follett, but if this is his character work across the board, I will be reading more. This was absolutely impressive. One of the best character stories I've read, hands down. I shed tears during this book several times. I also got so frustrated with characters I wanted to throw the book across the room. It's just a phenomenal effort by Ken Follett. Now, another thing that is fantastic, as I mentioned before, is there is a balance between the church and the monarchy. And that made the political intrigue in this fascinating. I mean, usually when we read books like this, whether it be historical fiction or fantasy or whatever, we're used to seeing these kind of push and pull between kingdoms. People trying to take over and coups being put in place and all that stuff. And that's interesting. And I love that. But this was multidimensional because you not only had all that stuff, you also had the church, which had its own level of intrigue, and it was mashing and battling against the monarchy. And not only does it add that second layer of intrigue, it did it in two different ways. One, you have the church that's trying to just have kind of this ethical grounding in the way that they pursue power. However, there's still tons of greed and kind of just grotesque elements of the human condition that come through, even though they kind of take this ethical stance. And then you have all the tropes that we associated with power-hungry monarchies. Awesome. Really, really cool, compelling stuff that added an element to the story that I didn't expect and didn't know I needed. So I want to see more of that other books. If there are books like that, please let me know, because that was just such a fascinating thing that I think really makes this book special. Now, as far as things I didn't love, the main thing is the book is just way too long overall. I mean, like I said, it's huge and it's compelling and there is high stakes, but there's a lot of redundancy in scenes and conversations and things that happen within the story that I think really could have been chopped down. I mean, this book's about 1,000 pages, probably could have been 650, 700, and it would have been just as good, if not better, just kind of pushing the pacing forward, because you do kind of spin your wheels for a good chunk of it. But that's a nitpick. That's a nitpick. Some people just want to spend more time in this story and period and world. I was ready to see things move along, but nitpick. And the only other nitpick I really have is there was one major plot point that kind of resolved in a way that I wasn't a big fan of. I was hoping for something a little more climactic, if you will. Once again, small nitpick. So if I have to give my final thoughts and impression, is this book worth the hype? Absolutely. I think this is a must-read for any fan of historical fiction, just general literary fiction, especially if you love fantasy. This reads like a huge epic fantasy tome, even though it's, there's obviously no magical elements to it or anything like that. But the tropes and the pacing and the multi-POV nature of it feels familiar. So all in all, excellent read. Recommend it to everyone. If you've read it, let me know what you think. And I'm trying to decide if I want to continue with the other Kingsbridge novels. I might do World Without End and then see if I want to do the other two. But if you've read them, let me know. Are they as good? Should I keep going? Should I bump it up the high priority list on the TBR? I'd like to know. Thanks, guys. Till next time. See ya.